Hello everyone, thank you for joining me today for a yin yoga practice. In terms of what you need, there is no requirement to even have a mat. You'll see that I'm on this glorious tiger rug with a mat underneath because I'm on a hard floor and I didn't want to slip too much. But you can do this practice on carpet, mat, or even on your bed. Other props that I have 2 blocks and a strap. They're not required for practice. And if you don't have something like a strap, for example, you could always make do with a scarf or maybe a long resistance band. But as I said, they're not required for practice. And if you do decide that you need a prop for support, you can find any household items around you to take the place. We're going to start in a comfortable seat, as we normally do our practices. And this practice is going to be very low to the ground. So get yourself comfy. Find maybe like a soft padding underneath. I'm wearing socks. Depending on the temperature in the room, you might decide to wear a jumper. As soon as we've got ourselves sorted, we'll come to find this comfortable seat. And I invite you to close your eyes. You're taking a moment with the eyes closed, or if more appropriate, gaze soft, just to notice where the hands have naturally gone to. Perhaps you found a mudra, or perhaps you're noticing whether the palms are face down or face up. Face down has quite a grounding quality that you're channeling, particularly if we do chin mudra with the thumb and the index finger together. Alternatively, palms face up is showing a more openness and receptiveness for all that is going to happen in the practice or even off the mat. And taking your choice, there are other possibilities available to you as well. And we'll just start to notice the natural flow of our breath. This allows the start of our practice to be this call to presence, and call to awareness, to listening to ourselves, which will benefit this particularly slow and purposeful practice. Maybe on your next exhale, allowing the shoulders to soften away from the ears. Maybe gently softening the skin along the cheekbones. Unfurling that space in between the eyebrows. And gently parting the teeth and or lips. Starting to find a softness. Note that today's practice, as with any yin practice, it's not necessarily about it being easy and comfortable, although hopefully you find moments where you can be comfortable in sensations that you may discover. But it is more about that searching for sensation, feeling our body. With that being said, this practice is yours. So if you'd prefer to have a more restorative vibe to it, that's your prerogative. Taking the deepest breath you've taken all day. and eyes can stay closed, gaze soft if you prefer, and you can follow my voice. We're going to turn ourselves in a position where we can go more long ways on our mat or in our space. And we'll start by taking the left leg long and the sole of the right foot to the inside of the left leg. There are a couple things we'll do here, and we might indeed use a prop like a block, or perhaps if we've got like a big cushion to rest our head, depending how far we fold forward in what will be an asymmetrical forward fold. I'll put the block there for the minute. We're going to try and encourage our left leg to have a bend in the knee. That's going to help us to start to kind of peek the tailbone out and find this hinging action at our hips, which is key for starting to work into our hamstring rather than getting the low back doing all of the work. So I'm going to begin by putting a bend in my knee. And we have a couple options here. We can prop something underneath that you have in the house. So it might be that you do like pop a little block underneath on sideways, so it's following the fold or the bend rather than digging into any part of the leg. That's not the element where you might feel uncomfortable or where I invite that to be okay. Or the other option is to take our left forearm underneath the left calf muscle and have our left hand in a fist just the other side. And obviously you can then begin to kind of shimmy yourself down, trying to lead the heart forward first. Feel that hinge in the hips. Maybe placing the head on a block or a prop and folding down and in. Alternatively, if we have something else propped underneath our knee, we might find that we take our hands in our hip creases, inhale up, and exhale to hinge forward, letting the hands rest wherever they may and allowing the head to relax. I'll come into our forearm and left fist option, and we'll gradually bring my head down to a block. And we'll be holding these poses for time, as is typical of a yin practice. So you may find that particularly after 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes, we might need to do a little bit of a shimmy or a readjust. And I invite you to do that, not just at this point in time, but any point along the journey. Again, our focus is about listening to our bodies, readjusting, recalibrating based on the new information that we are given. And while our breath is often not cued as much in the yin practice as the yang, hopefully here, if we need to feel like we need to ground in the present moment, you can use your breath to help you do so. And through our practice, I'll be sharing some quotes, the vast majority of them from the book The Way Forward by Young Pueblo. And go along with the intention of our practice, or at least my intention for teaching this practice, and that is to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because it allows you to feel the whole spectrum of feelings. So my first quote or passage, particularly key for when I am filming this in a change of season, the start of spring, where this is ever more pertinent. It is normal to feel down, tired, and emotionally exhausted when you're going through a big transition, especially when you have to let go of something good for the chance of something better. Great changes are not meant to be easy. They arise to inspire your growth. Taking your last few breaths here. And gently sitting up. We'll swap the legs around. I'm coming to the other side, and just a little note on why I tend to do these forward folds in my practices asymmetrically, so a side at a time. Hang on a minute, just get a bit of bum out the way to find the sit bones to hinge. Doing it asymmetrically actually allows people to find a little bit more space and freedom of movement in the pelvis, and that also helps us to intensify or increase the sensation we feel on the one side. So in this particular pose, we're aiming to feel the target area, our hamstring. The bend of the knee again helps that, and this hinging forward, heart forward first helps too. So taking whatever option you want in terms of either a prop, gently underneath the back of the thigh or the knee, whatever is suitable for you, or maybe the right forearm underneath the calf or somewhere underneath the leg with the right hand in a fist. So the sole of the left foot is somewhere towards the inside of the right leg, and we'll find that inhaling to reach the heart forward before the crown of the head, and an exhale to start to hinge. Once you've hinged, you might find that you then relax the head down. I might on this side, as this side is different to the other, actually pop a block on my leg and support my head that way, as I need a little bit of lift instead of having the block on the floor. So settling into this side. Noticing what sensations may arise. And as always, using this knowledge of what you're learning about yourself to help empower you in your practice. Allowing yourself to just be. And I say just be. And that makes it sound as if it's I don't want to use the word not accomplishing much, but it kind of minimizes the importance of being. And we are human beings and not human doings. So this time to allow ourselves to be and reflect, that particularly I find in a yin practice, is incredibly important. Particularly with the lifestyle that society kind of expects of doing, going. So well done for showing up to a yin yoga practice today. You might find that you need to readjust, or perhaps that you have a little bit more space to move in. Your initial limit has perhaps moved. Another passage from Young Pueblo. Life will distract you and pull your senses in different directions. But within you there is a clear compass that points relentlessly toward the freedom you have been seeking. Not the unfulfilling freedom of excess or of being without responsibility. The true freedom that comes from knowing your mind and body so thoroughly that wisdom reveals itself to you Embrace the silence. Don't fight what arises. Accept the waves of change. And let insight unlock truth after truth until you finally experience undeniable liberation. My teacher Claire often says, let the silence do the heavy lifting. And the reason these practices of rest, of quiet, are so important, as life can be very loud. Taking one more breath here. And allowing yourself to come upright. We'll find our way next onto our bellies. I'm going to move my block prop to the side. And we'll come down onto our bellies and have our elbows roughly underneath our shoulders. And our feet, they don't have to be super close together. They can be separated if that helps you find a little bit more lift. Forearms maybe parallel, maybe hands interlaced, maybe we grab opposite elbows. What can be really nice cushion or a rolled up blanket is to place one between your elbow and your chest or your rib cage to find a little bit of support or cushioning there. And coming into our Sphinx pose. Maybe taking a moment to gently press the elbows down into the mat and draw them towards the hip points, feeling this real reach of the heart forward. And there is always an option here. If it feels too much in the neck to be looking forward, you can always bow the head down and place your head down on a block or prop. We won't be in Sphinx in this particular variation of Sphinx for particularly long, but it will set us up for our next few postures. And as we settle in here, you might allow the left foot, part of the left leg to lift and really reach the left toes back, lengthening through the leg, and then allow the foot to come down. We'll do the same with the right hand side. So right foot, right leg starts to lift, draw back, really kind of getting out from under yourself. Pull back and put down. Amazing. Here, this is one of the poses in yin that actually has a little bit more of a kind of upper body focus, particularly stimulating flow of energy along upper body meridian lines. And those do include the stomach and the spleen and the heart and the lungs. This also can feel particularly nice if we do a lot of sitting, just moving us into that other space of movement or way in which our body can move. And when we're ready, we'll take our left knee out towards the side. So coming into a version of fallen tree, but with Sphinx arms. And it doesn't matter where the foot is in relation to the leg. Just find a place where it can rest. Once we've become situated here, there is an option to come into a twist. And there are two ways that we might twist here. One way, well, they both start the same. One way is to take the left hand out in front so you've got room underneath the left arm, and we'll thread the right arm underneath. If the side of the head, the right hand side of the head, doesn't come down to the ground, you can always take the left hand into a fist and rest your head on the fist. And if this is the version that we choose, just allow on that left hand, either it's facing down towards the ground If it's facing up like mine, just allow the fingers to start to curl in towards the center of the palm. And this is option 1. Option 2 is an extension of this. With option 2, we'll start to roll a bit more from this place onto our right hip. Again, kind of getting up out from yourself. We'll take our right hand towards the outside of the left thigh, and our left arm is going to open up towards the left hand side. Now here, this is quite nice because I have a wall, so I can gently rest my hand on the wall. Maybe you find a place where you come so much over on stacking the hips that you can drop the shoulder, the arm behind you. Feel free to use a prop to pad. It doesn't matter exactly what this twist looks like in terms of if the knee is towards the ground or the left shoulder is towards the earth. Just find a place where the hips are facing in a different direction to the fronts of the shoulders. So both variations starting from Sphinx. Both equally valid twists. And while we're breathing and settling here, I'll read our next quote. "9 things that hold great power: rest, kindness, meditation, vulnerability, healing yourself, being honest with others, embracing lifelong growth, fostering deep connections, and giving without wanting in return." Maybe taking a moment to notice the breath. Where can you find it flowing to with more ease in this twisted shape? Maybe at some point in your practice, you may notice if you've begun to kind of self-soothe. So without having the intention to do so, I've just noticed that I'm kind of rubbing the outside of my left thigh with my right hand. We do this a lot when we're sleeping, self-soothing, rubbing our feet together, of hugging ourselves. That contact brings ease and a feeling of safety to our nervous system. Even when it's touch that we're bringing to ourselves rather than out to others or from others to us. I'm going to invite you to find your way back to a Sphinx pose. Maybe you go out the way you came in. Once you're situated in your Sphinx pose, we'll take our right knee out to the side this time. And knowing that for everybody this will be completely subjective and relative, even day by day for each individual person as to how that knee wants to move out towards the side. And please do note you can do things like elevate the hips to allow for that movement to be facilitated with more ease. Finding yourself grounding and settling in this space before we make our decision as to whether we twist or which version of the twist we might like on this side. knowing that the choice doesn't have to be the same for this side as it was on the other. If we're coming to a twist, we'll start by taking our right hand down to the ground and thread the left arm underneath, coming over to either rest on the left hand side of our head on the earth, or instead taking our right hand in a fist and resting there. Again, if we have the left palm up towards the sky, this might be where you allow the fingers to start to curl in towards the center of the palm. Alternatively, if we wish to move into a different version of twist, we might start to take our weight over to the left hip and start to roll more, stacking the tips ever so slightly, so that we can start to peel open through the chest and take the left hand towards the outside of the right thigh. Right arm will open up to the side. This can be extended or maybe more in a bit of a cactus arm. You can always shimmy yourself a little bit more out from underneath yourself to try and open up, starting to ground the shoulder, even if it means that your right knee lifts. There are always options to prop, shoulder or knee, as I'm going to do with a block underneath my right leg. There's always taking time and being purposeful with our intention of finding a sensation. Here with the twist, we're focusing on the spine primarily, as well as the muscles like the obliques. And perhaps the pec. Allowing yourself to settle. Perhaps using an elongation of the exhales to help soothe. And the same as maybe finding a bit of self-soothing with the left hand on the right thigh. When we're ready, we're going to come out. It might be you transition through Sphinx. We're eventually going to make our way to all fours. So however that best works for you, I'm going to roll back out onto my belly. Plant the hands down, bend the knees, come back. And then shift forward to all fours. We're going to do a little bit of kind of slightly dynamic movement, a little bit of prep before coming into a pigeon pose. So we're going to allow our right foot to step outside of the right hand. Sometimes I like to do this in all fours. Alternatively, you can come into a down dog to find a little bit more space underneath yourself. So I'm going to take my right foot and just kick it up towards the sky. I'm going to start to open my hip to the side and allow it to come round. You can always guide it round, particularly with this slower practice rather than a really warm, dynamic yang practice. You might find it needs a little bit of assistance. I'm here on fingertips. This might be where you use a block or a prop. And we're just going to start to rock in and out. Now forward and back. Just a little bit of movement into the hips, seeing how they're feeling today. You might then take a moment the next time you've shifted more forward to plant the left hand down. You might shimmy the right foot a little bit more out towards the right, maybe turning the toes of the right foot towards the right. And see if we can take our right hand somewhere towards the knee or the top of the leg. We're going to make those kind of forward and back movements a little bit more circular. So you'll lean really far forward, and then as we come out slightly to the side, we'll start to push the bum back. Maybe the toes lift. Maybe we lean out towards the left on our return back towards the front, leaning forward, round to the right behind, round to the left forward. So allowing yourself maybe to pivot on the heel. Maybe the foot is down the entire time if, ankle ability allows, or if that feels really nice. We're kind of moving into this lungy half split, but slightly more into a lot more of the range of that hip joint. Oftentimes I like to try and initiate this kind of 360 movement rather than just the forward and the back that we might see in things like sun salutations, for example. Nothing wrong with that, but we have so many ways our body can move. Why not explore that? Amazing. The next time you come back, you might find a little bit of a half split. You can always have the knee bent. We have done a hamstring stretch. It's not really what we do in stretch. It's more working deeply into fascia and tissue and helping support joints. Well, we found our hamstring earlier, let's say that. Amazing. We're going to shift ourselves back forward into that low lunge. This might be where you shimmy your foot. Bring it underneath you so that the knee comes more towards the right wrist. It's okay if it goes more central. And we'll start to walk or slide the back leg back as we come to find our seat in our pigeon pose. And it might be that in your pigeon you prefer to stay upright. A nice option for this upright place is to take the left hand down again, slightly further out from being underneath the shoulder, and take the right hand somewhere towards the inside of the right thigh and do this like push away, as if you're trying to find the most length you can from the right hip crease to the crown of the head. I find this gives me more sensation along my hip flexor, my quad, so my back leg's hip, or my left hip along the front. And then once I've found that and I wish to come down to settle, I might feel this more than in the glutes as I take my upper body forward. And this might be a place where you rest your head down. Again, that can be on a prop. Or you might stay upright and uplifted. All options that you may choose to take. And if you do this practice again, the practice will be completely unique and might look very different. This pose for some people can very much be that pose of allowing yourself to feel comfortable being uncomfortable. We have so many large muscle groups and obviously joints, bones, structures around our hips that this can be a very unique experience from person to person. And there's always a possibility that one of those groups, it feels tight or perhaps isn't moved into in this way. Some people drop into pigeon and feels glorious. But if you're one of those people who particularly feels this pose with a lot of intensity, to say the least, this is again going to be a particular passage I'm going to read that will resonate with you in this particular place. Now, in order to realize the blessings in your life and become the very best version of yourself, you will have periods of time where you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Learning to do this will change your life. You might also recognize this same general viewpoint from the classic quote, "Nothing good ever came from the comfort zone." is stepping out of your comfort zone is the only way that you can find growth. Again, any readjustments you need to make here, feel free, particularly as that time sets in where you might start to find that your limit has changed and we need to readjust. Yin yoga allows us the time to really delve into how we're feeling within a practice and to acknowledge and action what we might want or wish to happen. And when we're ready, 2 more breaths here. Bringing ourselves up, perhaps planting the hands down on the ground. I like to curl the back toes under and do a little scoot of the back leg forward. And it might be that you can shimmy the right shin, particularly if you're on quite a slidey blanket, and slide back to all fours. Or you might have to lift up the back knee so that you can then move the front leg and do like a little shimmy in plank or in a kind of half down dog. If you need to maybe rock the hips side to side or go back and forward for a moment in a more box all fours position, feel free. And then we'll find that little bit of kind of prep, that lungy half split dynamic movement before we come to pigeon on the other side. So here you might take the left foot up towards the sky, open up the hip towards the left, and then bring the left foot round outside the left hand. I'll do this facing the same way on my mat, as you should still be able to see what I'm doing, and you do then get it from a different angle. So here we'll just start to maybe move back and forth. Doesn't have to be a massive movement or doesn't have to be a tiny movement. Just finding something. Particularly after doing pigeon on one side, you might find more sensation or certain parts of your body speaking to you more. And when we're ready, we'll start to make that movement more circular. So the right hand might come a little bit more out to the side. The left foot might also do the same with the left toes pointing more towards the left hand towards the left knee or just above on the thigh. And we'll start to find those circular movements. So I tend to lean forward and then out towards the left as I then come back towards the middle. And as I'm moving forward, I come over towards the right before I center. Out to the left, to the back, right, front. Obviously these circles can go in a different direction, or you can do one direction and then the other. And it might again look very different on this side because we have a lot of variability in hip sockets and the top of our femurs and how they all fit together. Again, even on one of our sides compared to the other. It's amazing how the human body that just seems so similar, and there are so many similarities from person to person, actually can be so varied. Awesome. Next time we come back, find a little bit of a half split. It might be that you're up quite high, or maybe the hands are on the ground, or the leg. Finding a bend in the knee might really help us here. And then we'll shift ourselves forward. This is where I do a little shimmy of my front foot, particularly helpful if you're on something that's a bit slidier than a sticky mat. And we'll come into our pigeon pose with the left knee somewhere towards the left wrist or more in the middle of the hands. Again, depending on your anatomy on this side. So sliding the back leg back. Maybe starting in this more upright pigeon variation. Of course, if we want to fold forward to start with, live your best life. I'm going to take my right hand out to the side and left hand to the inside / top of the left thigh. Just to find a moment really on the front of that right hip. before we then more target the glute in a fold forward. As always, the intention is yours. Your pigeon can go on a different journey than mine. And whilst I'm calling it pigeon, this is technically yin, and it's called swan and sleeping swan, as the intention for the poses are different to if we were in a yang practice. And bringing ourselves to fold forward, trying to access or find that sensation in the left glute. Again, you use props to support yourself. If, like me, you're not down towards the ground. Sometimes that can feel quite wobbly depending on the angle and the orientation of the other body part. So support yourself. Another way of listening to yourself and acknowledging what you need and giving that to you. And while we're holding here, another quote. Unpopular truth. What's meant for you sometimes will feel scary, risky, and new. Ease and calm doesn't always mean you're moving in the right direction. The biggest rewards usually come from having the guts and perseverance to create your own path. And although yin is this time to celebrate or carve out time to become more still, to be, don't let that make you think that you have to stay completely still. Readjust, recalibrate, respond. Allow yourself to delve into a deeper awareness. A couple more breaths here. When we're ready, coming up and out, you might bring the back leg a little bit closer and either slide the front leg back to sit alongside the other, perhaps finding a little shimmy of the hips. Or alternatively, you might curl the back toes under and lift the back knee just to draw the front leg behind. And you can always do a pedal of the feet or a little rock side to side in that space. When we're ready, we're going to come onto our bums and find our final pose of our practice today. It's Baddha Konasana or bound angle. This can be done remaining upright, or you might choose to come down reclined. And I'll show you options with the blocks and then with the strap to support the legs. So if you have two props of similar size, they could also be cushions. If you turn them slightly sideways, you can pop them on the outside of the leg on both sides. That just helps you to support the legs, and then you can feel this real, instead of feeling you're really holding on tight through the legs. Alternatively, instead of blocks, if you have a strap, we can pop this in a loop. So here is our time to do so. Well, I faff about with mine, unlike cooking shows where they're like, and I've prepared this one earlier. I have not prepared my strap earlier. You'll take the strap through the D-rings, both buckles, and you go over one and under the other. So it's through, over, under, strap. It's in a circular loop. If you twist it once so that you've got a figure eight or an infinity sign, pop the knee through one side, the knee through the other side, so you've got the X in the middle. You'll adjust it when you're sat upright, but then you may need to readjust if you come reclined. I like to have this little pulley strap here. Just taking a little moment to sit upright first of all. So hands might come to the big toes with the peace fingers, maybe hold on to the shin. And I like to reach the heart forward, find the sit bones, sit up really, really tall. Maybe we take the hands towards the inside like arches of the feet. Again, finding that bit of self-soothing or touch or massage. This can be quite nice to do with oils. And just mapping out the lines, the boundaries of you. How often do we spend time focusing on our feet? They do so much for us. And this will be your place where you either choose to inhale up and exhale to start to hinge, fold, and then round. You can support your head or the space between the head and your feet with some form of prop if you wish. Or you might inhale up and exhale to start to lower yourself back. You can support the back of you again with any cushions that you may choose. Finding our Baddha Konasana, hands, maybe one rests on the heart and one on the belly. Cactus arms is a nice choice. Or again, kind of rubbing the fronts of the hips or the thighs. And once we found our place to settle, and I will leave you here. You have the choice to stay for as long as you wish, or obviously the choice to then move on to further practice. Or maybe to sleep if you've done this before bed. Thank you as always for joining me for your practice.